Hi, I'm Lynne Peyton, and this is Success is Never Accidental, the show where we get to explore people's strategies for success, their mindset for success, and I get to interview some really interesting, successful people. My guest this morning is Athin Cassiotis, an amazing business coach and entrepreneur based in Sydney, Australia. Athin's also an international author, and his book, The 6 Keys to a Bulletproof Business Mindset, is simply fascinating. We talk a lot about mindset on this show, so this is a treat today to have someone who has written on that topic. Among his clients, Athin includes Kmart, Target, and Westfield shopping malls. I've listened to so many episodes of his podcast, The Business Growth Show, in which he's interviewed some really diverse speakers on a range of topics from marketing, real estate, communication skills, resilience, and even modern slavery. So I am delighted to welcome Athin Cassiotis. Hi, Athin, and thank you so much for joining us on Success is Never Accidental.
Hello, Lynne. Yeah, great to be here. I look forward to giving some value to your audience.
Oh, I definitely know you will do that, having met on countless occasions now. And I'm just a wee bit intrigued because your story is actually just epitomizes what we talk about on this show, that success is never accidental. You've actually achieved much more than you yourself thought was possible, and indeed others thought was possible. Would you share us a little bit about that journey and why you pivoted?
Yeah, definitely. Would love to. So I grew up in Adelaide, South Australia, a smaller capital city. And year 10 at school, I started selling VCD movies as my entrepreneurial journey started with a CD burner for the older people in the audience that will remember those. And then, towards the end of high school, both my parents were high school teachers, and I didn't enjoy it. And I ended up dropping out of school. And you can imagine what they thought, right? And they tried to get me other ways, but I ended up getting a job and worked my way up. And, from there, the head office moved me to Sydney. And then I wanted to learn more about business. Now, going back a step, when I left, my dad said that I would never be able to study having 3 degrees, right? When I left school, one of my teachers said I would never be successful. So imagine telling that to a 17, 18-year-old, right? But I'd done a lot of sport. And I learned to always grow, right? I'm always going to be better the next day, the next day. So I think that helped with my mindset, which I know is what a lot of what you talk about here. And then, I moved and wanted to learn more about business, and then worked out I could get into doing an MBA, a master's of business administration at university based on an experience. So I went to do that, and I went back and completed a master's, even though I didn't finish school, which was very challenging for me, but I was very determined. And I know that if I put my mind to something and I commit, then there's always a way to make it work, even against the odds. And sometimes proving people wrong can be a fuel as well, down the journey.
Your story resonates so much with my son because he took 5 years to get a very poor third-class honours degree because he just wasn't interested. But when he was 30, he went back and did his MBA. Now he lectures on an MBA course and he's in the middle of his doctorate. So he had the same experience. In school, people wrote him off, but it was just because he wasn't interested. And for him, it wasn't right at that time. But you talk about mindset, and you're the author of this fascinating book called 6 Keys to a Bulletproof Mindset. I love that. What do people need to do, Athin, to really strengthen their mindset? Because it's so critical.
Yeah, definitely. And there's a lot of things to do. I think one thing is mind feeding. So what are you feeding your mind? Are you just listening to the radio or just standard news and things like that? Or are you cutting out things that are like just ads and actually focusing on things that are actually going to grow your mind? So like podcasts, like we're listening to right now, right? Great value on podcasts, or audiobooks, like making sure you're feeding your mind with things. And you can listen to this in the car, like while you're doing your routines, or obviously specifically at certain times. And that also includes physical books, but I think audio is a great way to do while you do other things. And how you focus your beliefs is really where it comes down to, right? So there's a lot of people that say you can't do something, or you might say life is hard, business is hard, like something like that, right? You might say something like that. You may have thought this for years. If you think that it is going to be hard, because, Henry Ford said it, whether you think you're right or you're wrong, you're right, in that way. So you may as well focus your mind on where you want. And a lot of us, 95% of our thoughts are the same thoughts we had yesterday, right? So that means our brain is on this auto loop of doing the same thing all over the time. So we need to break that loop. So first of all, it's becoming aware. So if you get that thought, let's just say life is hard. We'll do a general one here. Then you got to catch that and go, okay, I just thought about that. What do I actually want? Flip that into a different possible way. What do I actually want to believe? Maybe life is easy. Life is fun. Life is enjoyable. Something else that resonates. It could be multiple things like that. And then incant that, like do affirmations. Tell yourself this every day. Write it down. I put it in my phone on a note. I do it in a morning routine when I started this every day to re-script my mind. And eventually your unconscious mind will start to believe this. And it's amazing what changes then over time when you start to believe that, this is enjoyable. And that could be anything on life or business, whatever you do there. And I think these are a couple of key little strategies that I will say is feed your mind with the right things and then also re-script your mind. And you can do it yourself, or you can go to coaches and mentors like ourselves, which can help, from an external, but even just yourself, you can do this, and that will help you to move you forward on where you want to be and then create the life that you want.
And would you agree that even just starting to question those limiting beliefs, because people have so many of them, and as you say, they're on a loop, they're unconscious. I'm too old, I'm too young, it's not the right time, I don't have enough money. So when we're coaching, we're constantly listening for those limiting beliefs, aren't we? So that we can challenge them. And one of my favorite challenges is what if, what if you weren't too young? What if this is the right time, and I try to work with my folks to really strengthen their mindset by just constantly looking to see what else might be possible. So what if is my favorite, if you like, incantation. So, but it doesn't always go according to plan, Athin. You chose a different route and you had to work really hard to get there. Thinking again around the power of mindset, what happens when you hit a bump in the road? Can you tell us about maybe something that didn't go according to plan and what you did to navigate through that?
Yeah, a lot of people think that everything goes well. Like they look on social media now and like, oh, these guys are doing really well, and there's nothing that really goes wrong, because a lot of people don't share the challenges. But I'll confirm that 90% is probably challenges, right, along the journey of success. And you have to keep bouncing back. And there's so many times where it's a lot about testing, right? So you do something and you get a particular result, but it probably wasn't the result that you wanted exactly. But either it went really bad, or maybe you got a small result and you were like, I need to get this to be better. So you need to change, you need to update. So, and I think that's the mentality that people need to do, is going, well, I just found, like Thomas Edison said this, who created the light bulb. He just said, I just found 300 ways of not to create a light bulb, right? So that was his mentality. So it's a great way to understand from a metaphor perspective that, that wasn't the right way. I just need to do something different to keep moving forward. And I think this is the biggest issue or challenge that I see with people, is that most people quit too early. I'll give an example. I got into doing I started doing in-person events this year, right? And I sort of was a bit last minute and did everything. And I had this big plans, and it was going to be like this amazing event, and I was going to get all these great results. I had really high standards for myself, but it's my first in-person that I was running myself. I've done a lot of speaking all over the world, but this is one here. And the results were not as high, right, as what I wanted. And there's a big outlay with in-person events to pay for venues, to pay for ads, to pay for so many things, right, in there. So there was a cost outlay there, and I didn't get the results that I wanted. Now, I think a lot of people would go, and what happens, what I see is they're like, oh, it's too hard, it's too expensive, I'm just not going to do them anymore, right? Whereas for me, it's like, it's all good, it's a learning. How do I get better? How do I now, how do I make the cost work for me? How do I make the return on investment? How do I make it a better experience for people? All of these things, so that the next event that I'm coming up soon in a few weeks is going to be better, right? And I'm sure there will be a much more positive ROI that I get on that to hit those targets. Now, will it be perfect? Probably not, but it will be better. That's my intention. And then it's a constant process of getting better over time. And I think that's what it is. And one thing I would say to people is ideally, if you want to build the grit resilience, is do some like door-to-door sales or phone sales, because the amount of no's that you get, I did it for about 6 months, is ridiculous. And you have to be able to pick yourself up and go to the next person, reset, and do that. And I think that's a little, challenging way to just build that resilience of that. If something doesn't go wrong, if you go on 10 sales calls and you get 10 no's, it's like, it's all good. Next one, like I'll get the client, right? From there, if it's a business perspective, or if you're going, if you're doing life and maybe you're going for a job and you didn't get it right, then, like if you didn't get the job, it wasn't right for me. Let's keep moving forward. Let's go to the next one. Like, so whatever it is, as long as you keep moving forward, you will always succeed. That's the key thing.
And you raised there the power of questions. When we ask ourselves questions that drive us forward and help us to grow. So your event, for example, well, what did go well? And you start really drilling down. Well, what else went well? And people find it really, really hard when you ask them even questions like, well, what are your strengths? What are you good at? And I suppose in Australia, it's the tall poppy syndrome. In Ireland, it's like, don't be getting too big for your boots. But when we ask ourselves, well, what went well? And then what would we do differently next time? What was the learning that we got from the event, for example? And then I always say, what could we do even better? Because when you put that little word even in there, there's no judgment. What could you do even better next time? So one of the other things you mentioned there, Athin, was when you go for a job and you don't get it. There are so many factors involved in getting a job, aren't there? And it's what the panel are looking for, what they're thinking about on the day. So it's a bit of a lottery whether you get a job or not, and helping people to take that not as personal criticism or personal failure and actually get them to see, you just need to get the learning and move on, as you say. So beautiful. I love those distinctions. What are some of the other things that are important to success? You mentioned having coaches and mentors, for example.
Yeah, definitely. And coaches and mentors are really key. And I think because we're in a box, right? And we only know our own perception. So, we don't see things as well as someone else does from the outside. And it's especially important from a mindset perspective, as well as then obviously strategies and tactics, whether it's business or life and things like that as well. But especially from a mindset perspective, because, you're not aware of your thoughts. And you mentioned it earlier, Lynne, right? Where as coaches, we're aware. We hear the limiting thoughts and beliefs come up and we go, hey, we need to delve into this a little bit more. Whereas it would just be standard. So, having someone external like that can go, wait a minute, okay, we need to do this. Like, I'll give an example. I had a client, multiple seven-figure, $1 million business, and came to me, found me online, and it's like, work with me. And I could tell in our initial call that his mindset was really bad. And I said, we need to do a full mindset session as our first main session. I did a mindset session on him and got him a big breakthrough. And from having multiple staff, from 15 staff down to less than 5, going bad in his business, he had his biggest month ever the month after that. And that was just on a mindset session, no strategies or tactics in his business, right? So it shows you as the business owner or anybody else in your business or whatever you do, how much your mindset plays a factor, right? Now, he couldn't see the path there, right? Now, that's where a good coach or mentor like ourselves can go, okay, let's go through a process, identify what is holding, them back, holding you back, and then move forward and re-scripting that, and then how we're going to change that going forward. So I think that's the real power of coaches and mentors. And then on top of that, the strategy and the tactics. So, if I do business coaching, mentoring a lot, so then it's like, okay, well, what do we need to fix most? What are the problems or the biggest challenges that we can get some quick wins and start building momentum over time? And I think that's my other point is momentum, right? Is like everything is a momentum game, whether it's business, life, or whatever. We're building momentum to go somewhere and getting better. And it becomes easier. It's like pushing a car by yourself. It's really hard at the start, but once the car is moving, it's very easy to push the car. So we've got to get that initial inertia. Once we start to move forward on something and we're going in a direction, coaches and mentors can help us, right, to keep that momentum going. We can do, obviously it's up to ourselves to do it as well, but coaches and mentors can be there, make us sure that we're on point, we're going in the right direction, keep us accountable as well. And that, you really, the success, I did the stats. It's, if you say you're going to do something, you're going to do it 20% of the time. If you have a coach and mentor that is going to have regular meetings with, you're invested with, you're doing ongoing, you complete the task 90% of the time. That's 4.5 times the output that you would have with a coach and mentor. So that's the power of them. That's why I have multiple, and I definitely recommend them to everybody.
That is that is a really, really strong validation, isn't it? 4.5 times more likely to complete. And the reason for that, Athin, is the accountability factor, isn't it? Coaches and mentors hold you accountable. What do you do every day to hold yourself accountable?
Yeah, it's a great question. And, it's really committing to someone. And if you've got a team or someone around you, I think it can help, right, as well. But even if you're by yourself, like, do you have an accountability person, right? Like, who are you accountable to? Even if it's messaging a coach and mentor, maybe that's part of it. Maybe it's having someone it's a family member or somebody else that's in your team. If it's a business, that you can say, I'm going to do this today. And then you check in at the end of the day or the day after and go, did you do this? Or maybe it's a weekly thing, like, etc. So that's one thing. Having external people definitely helps for yourself. In the end, for me, each day I aim to have, like, I think a top 3 is really important, right? Like, what are the top 3 things that I really want to do today? Because I'm sure all of us have had a to-do list of like 20 things before, and then you're like, oh, I got to do all this stuff. And then things happen. It takes a bit longer. You don't get them all done. You can feel a bit deflated, right? But in the end, if you have the top 3, and that's what you figure, you do first in your day, then if you get more done, great. That's what you want, ideally. However, if you just get the top 3 done for the day, then it's a successful day. And I think that's the mentality, right? Is what am I focusing on? What are the most important things? So I think that's the other part of it, is like, are you just doing emails for 4 hours a day, or are you doing things that are not really helping move your goals forward, whether it's business or life? Like, focusing on the most important things first at the start of the day before other things come up that can pull you down, right? So, and then if they get in the way, you might not complete them. So I think that's really important of how I keep myself accountable. And, sometimes you have bad days as well. Everybody has a bad day. So if you have a bad day and things didn't go right, that's okay. Go to bed, get a good night's sleep, and come back. Don't beat yourself up or anything like that. Because, one of my coaches, and as well, says that if you have 50 good days a year, you can be a millionaire. You can be successful, right, in anything that you do. And that's 1 day a week, 50 days a year, basically, right? So that means that there's a lot of stuff that can happen each day. So it's just how you bounce back quickly as possible throughout that day. Like, don't dwell on something that happened at 9 a.m. until 9 p.m. and that wrecks your whole day. Try and get back to equilibrium back within 15 minutes or an hour, whether that's going for a quick walk or something, because then that will keep you accountable to then not write off the day, but then refocus and then create the success that you want.
So many brilliant points there. We could talk forever, but that one about get up and go for a walk, because changing your physiology helps you to shift your mindset. So if something's not going well, take a break, go for a walk, phone a friend, do something different and get yourself out of that stuck mold. But every day is a new day. Every day is a new opportunity. And I love that you said, focus on what's the most important things to get done that day and do it. Tony Robbins, I know you're a Tony Robbins fan, and I worked with Tony for many years. And he always says the reason people don't get what they want in life is because they don't know what they want. But if we start every day knowing what we have to get through that day, and then that helps us to avoid the distractions. Athin, I want everybody to listen to your podcast because there's something in there for everybody. Many of the people in my audience are not business owners. They're workers who provide for the most vulnerable in society. There's something on your podcast for everybody. So tell us a little bit about the Business Growth Show and the kind of range of topics you've covered, and also tell people how else they can follow you.
Yeah, thanks, Lynn. So the Business Growth Show, I've been going for over 4 years now, over 200 episodes every week. And people think it's just business, but I kept it wide on purpose because everything connects to business, right? So there's a lot of life things, there's a lot of health things and everything like that in the podcast. And like Lynn mentioned, it's not just for business people, because business is just, is a vehicle for life. That's the way that I see it. So, and I've had a wide variety of guests. I've had big celebrities and very well-rounded people on there. I've had people that have done, a lot of health, life things, mindset. So all this mindset stuff that we're talking about, that's so important today. There's so many mindset episodes on there. And then obviously you can go into specific, business strategies, but even then a lot of them can be relevant for you. Like if we're talking leadership and other topics, which is obviously relevant, if you're working as well, right? Because we're all, even if you're not the business owner, it's good to understand about business if you're working for someone, whether it's a for-profit or non-for-profit business, because you're part of a cog, right? You're part of a big team there in your role in doing what you're doing. So understanding these different elements, even if you're not the owner, is really important. So you're all working towards the same vision. So I definitely recommend it. There's so much there for everybody. Check out all the episodes, and I'm sure you'll find many that reach out. You can find it on all the main platforms. That's on Spotify, Apple, Google, as well as on YouTube. And to find me, easiest way is probably my website, athincassiotis.com, as well as all social media platforms on, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, and all the rest of it. I'm all on there. You can find the podcast links and everything like that. And feel free to reach out. Always happy to have a chat to anybody, quickly like that. Reach out to me on social media, and would love to do that. Otherwise, it's been a pleasure. Lynne, thank you so much for having me on the show. Really loved giving value, and congratulations for launching and continuing your podcast as well.
Athin, it's been an absolute joy. Thank you so much for sharing so much wisdom and insight with us today. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks a lot. Same to you. Bye-bye.
Well, what amazing insights from Athin Cassiotis, a successful business coach, author, and international speaker based in Sydney, Australia. So just having a think through there, what were some of the key points? So coming from a family of educators, Athin didn't finish school, charted his own path, and then ultimately got a master's in business admin when the time was right for him. Athin shared the importance of having a strong mindset, and some of the things that he said we can do to create and strengthen our mindset was to feed your mind by reading, by listening to audiobooks, listening to podcasts, and Athin's podcast is just incredible. But now we have several episodes already. I think we're up to 10 episodes in Success is Never Accidental. Identify and challenge your limiting beliefs. My favorite way of doing that is what if. Stop the continuous negative loop in your brain and start to re-script the story. I thought that was very powerful. And he gave us some clues on how to do that by using positive incantations and affirmations to strengthen our self-belief. And then he talked about don't quit too early. When things don't work, get the learning from that particular experience and integrate that learning into your next attempt and your future efforts. Keep asking yourself, how can I do this better? How can I do this even better? Really importantly, he said, get a coach to help you work on your mindset. And if you don't have a coach, ensure you have someone to hold you accountable. Athin talked about while strategies and tactics are absolutely critical to success, it all starts with your mindset. And then he talked about making every day as successful as possible by getting focused on the top 3 things that we need to achieve in that day. And really importantly, he said, if you have a bad day, pick yourself up and start again tomorrow, because tomorrow is a new day. So Athin's podcast is all about aspects of life and health, as well as about business strategies. And there's things in there on communication skills, resilience, etc. So there really is something for everyone in the 200 episodes of the Business Growth Show. So check out his website and check him out on LinkedIn, and do start to implement some of these insights and some of that wisdom into your everyday life. And remember, success is never accidental.